Okay, let's go. Right. Welcome to another podcast on the Arena Podcast. My name is Princeton. Today I have Kizito on the line to discuss Medeama Sporting Club. They have gone back to Evans Adortey, who is the technical director. After Nebojsa Kapor's contract expired, they refused to extend it. And so, for the sixth time, Evans Adortey is taking over as the club's head coach. Um, in 3 times that he's taking charge, he's led the team to win titles. I mean, twice winning the Premier League and also the FA Cup. So we're asking, why did they go back to Adotey, and can he deliver another title-winning season for Medeama? Kizito, welcome to the podcast and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Medeama Sporting Club, a very interesting club. We've seen the development they've undergone in recent times. The stadium and all of that. But I want us to start with this season. If you look at the table, seventh on the league, 22 points, not very far from the top spots. I get it's not really worrying for them to end this relationship with Nebojsa Kapor. What really do you think went on for them to decide on letting him go?
Yeah, I think basically, if I'm going to go straight and answer the question, I think I would say that it will boil down to disagreements between coach and then club. You rightly put it. If you are going strictly about the team's performances this season, and obviously based on the terrain and how our system is, our terrain is, a team lying seventh on the league with that number of points at this juncture of the season, based on other circumstances, and with just 6 points off the top of the Premier League, you wouldn't say that it's been a disastrous season or a bad season. That's not what you would say. But again, I just feel there was this disconnect between coach and club. Circumstances that surrounded the coach's appointment. And even I remember when he was named coach, it took a while before he assumed the reins. He was named coach, but then he actually assumed the reins about 4 games later. At that time, Medeama was struggling, and the decision had been made that Adotey would go, back to being the technical director of the team, and they assumed the duties from there. And it was a decision that had been taken at boardroom level, and everything was in place for the coach to come. So it took a while. There were stuff they needed to do behind the scenes with some documents and all of that. But once that was sorted, the coach assumed the reins. Now, immediately he did. Medeama as a club are a club that traditionally have been known for a particular style of play. They play a certain brand of football. That is the expectation of the fans. When there's a coach, the fans generally, expect a particular style of play, a particular style of football. So it brings into the discussion the old adage of style versus substance. So how are the team doing? Even though maybe the team could be getting results, but what is the brand of football that they are playing? Is it something that is in tune with the traditions of the club and what the club have been come to know for? Under this coach, there were a lot of grievances especially with the fans. Even when the club was winning games, you felt that fans still were not happy with the brand of football. Medeama will be winning games, but they will not be doing it comfortably. They will be doing it by the scruff of the neck. You will go to the stadium, and the way and manner Medeama struggled to pick up victories, it was an issue that was never ending. It was something that even the media landscape in Takwa and its environs, it was a topical issue. But then the coach always intimated that the most important thing, obviously, in football is to win, and that he needed time to be able to build momentum with respect to finding a particular identity for the team. So for me, it was just a mixture of so many issues, so many circumstances. But I would say that this particular one stood out. The fact that the coach never really endeared himself to the fans, as well as the top officials of the club. There were a lot of ramblings at both boardroom level and then among the fan base about whether to go on with the coach or not, or what the future holds, with this coach at the helm. So even though the team were doing quite well as far as results were concerned, but the football itself left a lot to be desired. And by virtue of that, it felt, I mean, initially the coach signed just a year contract. And after that, before the time was almost up, discussion had begun about the tendencies of extending the contract. The two parties sat, and then, according to sources close to the club, they said that the owner and bankroll of the club, Mr. Musisama, claimed that he needed time to deliberate and to make a decision on the coach. So by the time that they were ready to move forward with the coach, the decision now had been made to move forward with the coach. That okay, let us just give him some time to see if he'll be able to get things back on track. The coach had also decided that he was going to leave. He wasn't going to play that game of cat and mouse with the club. He felt he was ready to move on. At the time, the club decided they would wait, think about it, wait it out, wait it out. By the time the club were ready to move on with the decision, the coach had already made his mind up that he wouldn't continue. So basically, it was all a bit messy, a lot of disagreements, and this massive standoff between club and coach ensured that we were at this point where the parting of the ways meant that it was just the most appropriate decision going forward.
I listened to it and I'm thinking that this is a coach who took over from a winner, Evans Adortey, being elevated to the technical director role. And so some of the players, or even almost all the players, still be having this sense of loyalty or respect, not to speak against Nebojsa Kapor, but they still would value what Adotey's presence in the team. And I have heard stories that there are games that Adotey would instruct them to do something else, and Nebojsa Kapor, who's supposed to be the main man, is not in charge. Was that kind of thing happening? And do you think that affected Nebojsa Kapor's relationship with the players and even the club as a whole?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Adotey is almost a cult figure when it comes to Tarkwa and the Medeama in general. I'm sure as and when we proceed in the session, we will talk more about Adotey. But he's somebody who is very influential. Obviously, based on what he's given to this football club and what he's been able to achieve with them. The most successful coach in the history of this football club, winning the FA Cup twice, winning the league with them. So he commands a lot of respect, a great deal of respect, and the fans revere him a lot. He's somebody that, again, and like I'm saying, the records and the successes he's been able to chalk with this club, it just speaks naturally for him. He has a lot of credit in the bank when it comes to his relationship with, especially with the owner and bankroll of the club, Mr. Musisama. And generally, all of the top officials in the club, he's that respected and very much revered. So it wasn't surprising. And even going beyond the officials of the club, the players itself, the playing body, there are still quite a few players who are currently in the squad who have worked under him. The title-winning squad of 2 seasons ago, some of these players are there. And even beyond that, if you're a new player and you come into the Medeama fold, you already know the standing of Evans Adortey. It's something that you are made aware of, that this man is part and parcel of the Medeama tradition and everything that they've been able to achieve thus far. So I mean, it was always going to be difficult. Coach Kapor almost always had his work cut out from the very beginning, and that is how eventually panned out. They are very, very credible sources. I have colleagues who are very close to the team who have told me in confidence that at various points the coach will give instructions to the players, and the players will run to Adotey and then kind of query the coach's methods and tactics, bring it to Adotey instead. But of course, that's par for the course. He's the technical director. He's supposed to handle the entire technical direction of the team. That is not to say that the players didn't have him within their right. But I mean, in a proper footballing structure, even though there's a technical director, but the coach, the first team coach, still supervises everything that has got to do with the team. It's the first team coach who picks the starting 11. He prepares the team and then names match day squads and all of that. Of course, like he can decide to go to the technical director and then, but again, it is incumbent on the first team coach to do that. So if you have a situation like that where some of the players feel they owe allegiance to the technical director instead of the first team coach, then it becomes problematic. So it's something that is true. You cannot completely rule that out. And by virtue of that, things were not properly mapped out when it comes to the coach himself, how players take instructions from him, the relationship with Evans Adortey. And by the time we realized, everything was all a mess. So you could say that also contributed to where we are now, where the parting of the ways was just the best decision going forward.
Right. And then I guess why not continue with Adotey as a head coach in bringing a new person, not just a new coach, but also an expert who don't understand the culture here and would have to find time to settle. So I know I don't really get why they would always go for a new manager and still keep Adotey around. Why that decision?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So Adotey, for all of his successes that he's chalked with this team, and as I've already spoken about the credit that he has in the bank when it comes to this team and the respect he commands and all of that, there are also a fair few people who really feel his ways and his methods as a coach are kind of pretty much outdated, if I'm allowed to say that. So Medeama as a club have always been on the market for a very young, enterprising, modern day tactician, a coach, who is young. And the key term here is who is young. Adotey has seen it all. He's an OG. He's seen it all. He's a veteran as far as coaching in our game is concerned. So it has just got to do with what the club feel like they want to do. Going forward, that has always been the case with them. That is why a couple of seasons back, they decided to appoint now assistant coach of the Sudan national team, Ignatius Osei-Fosu. At the time, Ignatius was very young. He had just begun his burgeoning career, and based on what he had been able to do with 11 Wonders at the time, because of that, he had kind of built this mini reputation with himself in the local game in that period. And Medeama felt he's somebody who could really do a good job. Obviously, that did not work out. And since then, they've been scouring, and every time that the opportunity has come to name a coach, that has basically almost been their first criteria. So even though after Ignatius Osefusu departed, they went in for a certain David Duncan, who has also been part and parcel of the process. He's also a veteran. But even before Duncan, there was a certain Omar Rabi. Omar Rabi was assistant to Evans Adortey, and before him, he was also assistant to Samuel Bodu. He kind of played a massive role during that period. So he was very young, and at the time, it felt like he will have the opportunity to coach the team. But somewhere along the line, he also had an offer to travel to Egypt for a job, which he took. And then it meant that Medeama had to come back to square one. They appointed David Duncan. That also did not work out. And then after Duncan went, they brought in Adotey as a stopgap. Adotey won the league that season. But then again, it goes back to your question you asked. Someone would have felt that after Adotey won the league, the team participated in Africa. They did quite well. Obviously, they weren't going to win the Champions League. They did quite well. They got to the group stage. But again, it always felt that Medeama were not really all of a sudden 100% content with Adotey, and that they needed a new direction, a young coach, a young manager to come and steer the affairs of the team. Nebojsa Kapor is just 38 years old, so he fits in that criteria. So I would understand why Medeama went in for him. He's young. He's had a stint in the local game before and all of that. Obviously, that also has not entirely worked out. So it really throws a light on how chaotic the whole situation has been and how disorderly the whole situation has been as far as the coaching situation is concerned for Medeama. They've not been able to really nail down a particular coach and say that this is the one we want. It's always the situation of falling back to Adotey and then probably Adotey fixing the situation in that moment. Once he does that, you have the feeling that probably Adotey will continue, but the club always feel that Adotey is past the point where he becomes head coach of the team. That is just how they feel right now. It's just the position of the club that they just do not see Adotey as probably somebody to continue as the head coach of the club. I do not know the reason why, but again, I feel it is because they think Adotey is probably a bit old and that some of his methods are probably outdated, and they'll be best served if they go in for a young, dynamic coach, modern day coach instead.
But the funny thing is, he comes, takes over, and special moment like the Premier League, the first time in the club's history, and went on to Africa, did quite well, very, very well, I must say. Let's look back on that one. What do you think worked for Adotey in those circumstances? Yes, he understands the club, he knows the ins and outs of it, but they had come closer in several times. What do you think worked for them this time?
Yeah, I think
for Adotey in that yeah.
Yeah, I think beyond the fact that he knows the club inside out already, I'd also like to think that he's a pretty good tactician. We do not give him a lot of credit for that. People always think, especially people in Takwa, those close to the club, they always feel that whenever Adotey comes back, it is a foregone conclusion. But it is not as easy and as straightforward as that. I remember during the title winning campaign, I worked very close to the team. I was a correspondent. I covered the team comprehensively. I wrote a lot of articles, about the team. I covered the team really comprehensively. So up close and personal, I saw a lot of changes happen and the reasons behind the changes. and why Adotey made those changes, and how in the end those changes ended up being shrewd and very spot on and very, very decisive. For example, during that title winning season, 2 seasons ago, when he came back to assume the rings, there were a lot of disunity in the dressing room. There were a lot of players who were very disgruntled and were unhappy because the previous coach, the predecessor, had ended up sidelining them from the team. They had been jettisoned from the team. They were not made to feel like they belonged. They were not part of the team. But these players were players who would go on to prove very crucial for Adotey and route to the team winning the title that season. On top of my head, two players were very crucial. Both of them obviously played integral role in ensuring that the team won the league. Vincent Atinga, who is now at Gold Stars, and then the captain of the team at the time. Of course, Atinga was the vice captain. A certain Kizito. These were veterans of the team. They had a lot of influence in the dressing room. The young players looked up to them, they respected them. But under Duncan, again, like I said, they were sidelined for reasons we do not know. Immediately, Adotey came in. He reinstated these players. He brought them back into the fold, brought them back from the cold, and reintegrated them into the team. And during that January transfer window, one or two other inclusions ensured that Medeama were able to put together a proper title tilt. They played some really lovely football, especially during the second half of the campaign. They scored a lot of goals. Jonathan Soa was their go-to guy, banging in goals left, right, and center. Atinga also came in, crucial at various points, converting various penalty spots for them. And by the time they realized, they were getting near to the league. So again, it's not just about the coach coming in and just waving a magic wand. That's not how it works. This is football. It takes a lot. These are things that people underrate, but it takes a coach who knows his stuff to come in and then sometimes even calm nerves. And Medeama again are at that point again. It almost feels like it's deja vu right now again. They are just back to where they've been for some time now. It just keeps happening, it just keeps reoccurring. But if it's worked in the past before, I mean, who says it can't work now again? Adotey just has that knack of galvanizing a group, putting together a dressing room again, uniting them again, giving a team a purpose again, giving them a sense of belief and a sense of direction again. He has all of those qualities. And I'll not be surprised if he's able to pull it off again. Of course, circumstances are different. And I always say this, all of us have been followers of the game for a long time to know this, that every season has the demands and the circumstances they bring. The fact that it worked 2 years ago, it doesn't mean it will work this time around. Far from that. But what I'm saying is that sometimes all it takes is somebody with a proven track record, somebody with experience of the situation to be able to come in and then do it again, repeat the formula like they did it the last time. So there's a lot banking on this, but again, different circumstances, even different set of players. If you compare the squads from 2 seasons ago to now, different set of players. There are a lot of players who have departed during this 2-year period. A lot of incomings, a lot of outgoings. So there are quite some similarities, but there are a lot of differences too. If you compare this situation to the situation of 2 seasons ago when he came in, he galvanized the group and he ensured that the team won the league.
Yes, we've mentioned that you will not be surprised if he does this again. But having said that, do you think with this current challenge in the Premier League, Of course, BBN Gold Stars have popped up. Summertex won it last year. The likes of Kotoko and Atofo cannot really found their feet in the season. Does it give him another chance, another bite to go for this one?
Yeah, I really think it does. It's a wide open league. It's a really wide open league. If you watch the standings, like we said earlier on, it's just about 6 points separating Medeama, who are 7th on the log, to the team on top, which is Heart of Lions. So if again the Ghana Premier League traditionally, especially in recent years, and when I say in recent years, I would begin from probably the last decade or so, from when teams like Aduana Stars, teams like Bekum Chelsea, teams like Wow Stars, okay, and now later Medeama, and now you mentioned Nations FC. There's Samatex who won the last season. Heart of Lions are now top of the pile. So exactly. So now, traditionally, the league had always been Kotoko Hearts for obvious reasons. But in the last few seasons, there's this kind of emerging forces that come out every now and then, every season in, season out of nowhere. And it tells you how competitive the league has been in that period. Even Kotoko and Hearts are now finding it really tough to deal with the demands of the league. Gone are those years when the campaign is about to begin. You say that it's a foregone conclusion. It's always going to be, it's a straight shot between Kotoko and Hearts. These two teams are going to battle it out. These days, it's not like that. Kotoko and Hearts traditionally have always dominated the terrain, but it's not like that these days. In recent years, that has not been the case. So it's a very, very wide open Ghana Premier League terrain now. I mean, I look at a team like Nations FC and the sort of football they've played so far this season, the sort of football they've churned out, some of the performances by some of their players. I mean, it's just something to really speak about. So I'm not going to say that Medeama can't pull it off. They can. They easily can do that. But then again, it's going to be difficult. If you ask me, I think it's going to be, this time around, it's going to be far more difficult than it was 2 seasons ago. Again, different circumstances. A lot of things have changed now. But one key thing here is that this is how the Ghana Premier League is. Like I always say, the team that are lying on top of the league, how many points do they have now? I do not know on top of my head, but I do not think it's a situation where you can see the first team or the team on top of the league has dominated the terrain. You can't say that. So it's a very competitive terrain. You cannot say one team completely dominates the pile and then goes ahead and win the league. You cannot say that.
So they have 27 points.
Okay, they have 27
points. And Medeama have 22. Yeah, so five points difference. And just 7th on the table. So it's a long season and they don't have much time to cover. And in the league, exactly. That home wins also wins to probably gives you the chance of winning the league. I guess the new stadium, Kennedy Stadium that they are playing, how have they fared there in terms of on the pitch and off the field too? So it's a new development that many people were really happy for them all across the country. How have they fared over there too?
Well, of course, the TNA Stadium is the traditional and spiritual home ground of the team. And by virtue of the fact that it had to be renovated and refurbished, the team temporarily had to move to the Akon Park. Now they are back. But It takes a while. It takes a while, and it's a new facility, and it takes a while generally for the team to get themselves back in tune with the stadium, the ground, and everything that has got to do with it, even on a spiritual level. If you cannot believe in those things, of course I do, because there's a reason why teams, especially in our league, teams try to do well in their home grounds as much as possible, pick as many points as they can from their home, and then consolidate it with any other further ones they can get away from home. If you're able to do that, it's likely you win the league. That's just how our terrain is. Try as much as possible and build your dominance at home, and do just a tiny bit well away from home. It's likely you win the league. That's just how our terrain is. So traditionally, if you look at past winners, I spoke about Bekum Chelsea, I spoke about Indiana in recent years, especially Indiana. I mean, Doma traditionally is always a daunting ground. When you go there, you dare not go there with the idea of going to win the game. So there's this mental fortitude that the team built with that. And they build on that, they use that as a springboard, and then they take maximum points at home, and then they feather it up, and then they ensure that they win the league. Medeama did same with Akon Park. That's where they won the league. But now again, they've had to go back to the TNA Stadium, and it takes time. The team, for me, if you ask me, it's been mixed. It's been quite mixed. They've not had it all their way, and it's not been all doom and gloom as well. I'm not going to say it's been all catastrophic or it's been splendid. No, for me, it's just been mixed. You feel that the team are still taking steps towards adjusting and adapting to the fact that they've now come back to the TNA Stadium, and they have to pick it from there and then do well. For me, it's only a matter of time that they get themselves back in tune with the stadium, and then they just pick it from there. But so far, I'm going to say it's been a mixed bag in terms of both results and performances, and even the reception from the fans as far as the stadium is concerned.
Very well. Back to Adotey, and then we'll wrap it up. How is it like? I mean, I cast my mind back to when they were playing in Africa. They met Ali. I was quite a bit religious about it. I mentioned that it was quite, religious when he mentioned that they trust in God and all of that. They hope that things will go on for them. How is it like as a manager, and personally, how is it like leading the team?
Yeah, he's Adotey is quite brilliant. For those of us who've had the opportunity of always coming into contact with him, speaking to him, gathering his thoughts, those of us who are fortunate to work up close and personal with him, be in that same space with him, he's really, really resourceful, and he's a quite extraordinary man on all levels. And I'm not surprised why he's very much adored and revered by the people. Yeah, but ultimately, it takes more than just you being Mr. Nice Guy to be able to kind of put two and two together and then ensure that the team does well. It goes way beyond that. Okay. That is why, in my opinion, even if I can cite this example going by what happens in Europe, the leagues we follow in Europe. Zidane, during his time at Madrid, he came in for a lot of stick that, hey, he's a nice person, he talks to players nicely, and that's all he does. Even now, current coach of Madrid, Carlo Ancelotti, also suffers that a lot. He's just a nice guy, and but Look, there's a whole lot behind the scenes. There's a whole lot of things that happen that goes beyond what you and I see on the field of play. It goes beyond the tactics. It goes beyond what formations or what systems. Sometimes you need somebody to coordinate things at the back because, believe it or not, footballers need to be able to have the mental capacity and the peace of mind to go onto the field and deliver their maximum best, not only for themselves, but for the coach and for the club. Adotey is somebody who guarantees that. He provides that platform. You can have a discussion, a debate about his tactical acumen. It is understandable. I remember during the AFCON campaign, there was this local TV station or FM station, I should say, in Takwa that covers the team. It's called Medeama FM. Um, there was a time I served a role there, so we covered the team a lot, covered the team during the African campaign, and we would always have issues with Adotey's tactical, some of his tactical decisions, especially during the African campaign. I felt he made a lot of mistakes. Medeama had an opportunity to really do well and even qualify past the group stage and into the knockout rounds. They really should have. But for Adotey's tactical misgivings, they were not able to. So tactically, there are a lot of issues with him. You can have a whole debate, a never-ending one, when it comes to his tactical ability, his acumen, and his tactical intelligence when it comes to the game. You can argue about that. It's very arguable. But when it comes to his man managing abilities, the behind the scenes, putting stuff together behind the scenes, giving players the platform and the confidence to go onto the pitch and then play above themselves. He's top notch when it comes to that. He's somebody who really gives players that. He will give you that, he'll give you the platform and all of that. So he's a proper man manager when it comes to that. As in being an astute coach, again, it's up for debate. But he's a really nice gentleman, a proper man manager. And when it comes to galvanizing a group, putting together a group of players, giving them a purpose, giving them a sense of direction, he's up there. And I'm not surprised that the club are falling back to him again to try and then steer the ship or steady the ship and then do that till the end of the season to make sure whether maybe a new manager comes in or not. So I wish him all the best. Let's just see how things pan out with him.
Whoa. I mean, I guess it's fair that you keep someone like that. I mean, around and make sure the players are well managed. It's very fair, very fair. Finally, absolutely. I mean, they are back on the field later on. The game against Kerala was postponed. But your take on that one and how it will shape up the season finally.
Yeah, a brief one on that. I mean, it's Medeama and Kerala. It's always an interesting fixture. I remember when during those days when Kerala had a lot of dominance at home at their home grounds. It was always an interesting fixture. Even when they came to Takwa, it was always I mean, whether the game was at Ininase or at the camp park at Ininase or at the Akum Park, it was always an interesting fixture. And there's always this camaraderie between the two clubs. But that friendship stops every time the two teams are about to play. And this time it should not be an exception, regardless where the game is being played. Kerala themselves have had their issues over the years. A quite topsy-turvy campaign for them. But, I mean, it's Kerala. And whenever Medeama are in town, they want to prove a point. They play above themselves. And they always want to have one over their traditional, regional rivals. So it should be an interesting one to look forward to whenever that game is rescheduled and whenever it's played. it's always an interesting game to look forward to, and this time around, it will not be an exception.
Very well. We'll leave it there and we'll see how it goes on the match day. Thanks so much, Kizito, on that lowdown for Medeama and Evans Adortey. Hopefully, we'll do this again next time. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.